Hello and welcome back to Alex FPL. Today we'll be looking at a possible Game Week 2 wildcard and what that looks like. But before we dive in, I have some topics I wanted to address first. First up, I wanted to give my opinion on why Salah and Haaland together look so good right now. The main reason why I think a lot of us are thinking this way is that Salah and Haaland both hauled in their first game weeks, whereas other players like Palmer, Wirtz, Fernandes, Watkins, who we brought in alongside one of these two premiums, have not performed. So the easy conclusion to make is that Salah and Haaland is the way to go, and all those other assets I just mentioned are useless. Of course, that's just too reactionary. We've only had one game week. Imagine if Haaland and Salah had only got, let's say, an assist each, and then Palmer, Wirtz, Fernandes, Watkins had all scored. We'd be thinking completely differently. So the only data we have to go off is game week 1. So before we immediately rip up our teams to bring in Haaland and Salah, let's practice patience for a bit. Let's watch game week 2. Let's see what happens and then make a decision later on. So for those of us considering a wildcard this game week, we only have the data set from the first game week to use. Whereas if we wait until later on in the season, even game week 3, that at least gives us 2 game weeks, which is double the amount of data than we had in just game week 1. I don't want to discourage anyone from using a wildcard when it feels right for your team. I myself used my wildcard last year in game week 3, and it completely changed my season. So I'm all for aggressive FPL tactics, but I would urge you to at least wait one more game week to see what data sets can actually help improve our decision making. Now moving on to some other topics. As I mentioned, Palmer, Wirtz and Fernandes are all being questioned now because they blanked in game week 1. Let's take them one by one. So firstly, Palmer. As I said in my last video, Palmer did appear to be playing quite deep in that midfield, not cutting in from the wing the way we like to see him. So if he keeps playing in that position, I do think we could potentially look to move Palmer out. Now let's talk about Wirtz. Now, obviously, yesterday I said that he wasn't my best pick in FPL, and I still think that if I went back in time and I could do my first Game Week 1 team again, I obviously wouldn't include Wirtz. However, do I think he's an absolute sell this week? Probably not. I personally will be keeping him until Burnley in Game Week 4, see how he does then, and then move from there. Now, Fernandes. I do think Fernandes deserves another chance. His first game was really difficult against Arsenal. Let's give him 2 or 3 more game weeks before we make up our minds about whether we should have him in our teams or not. Next, Konza. So I own Konza in my team. What I'll be doing is I'll be benching him and bringing Porro off the bench to play instead. Of course, Porro is playing against Manchester City, not the easiest fixture, but having seen how Thomas Frank set up in the Super Cup, I do think that Tottenham will actually play with a back 5, which makes Porro a fantastic pick because he'll be playing as a 5th midfielder, almost like a full winger. So I do think of all the situations I'd want to play Porro in, playing in that position against City, not the worst one. He'll have plenty of room to run in behind, put in crosses, and hopefully get us some attacking returns. But going back to Konza, he'll obviously stay on my bench for 1 week, and then the subsequent game weeks after that, which is the whole reason we brought him into our teams, actually look really good. So absolutely no need to sell Konza. Finally, do we play an early wildcard? Potentially. It's very team dependent. So if you feel like you pick players who aren't starting, are injured, or for whatever reason are not good FPL picks in the long term, then playing an early wildcard is a good solution. I myself played an early wildcard last season in Game Week 3, and it saved my whole season. So it can be a really good move. It's very aggressive, but it can be a good move. One thing I will say though is that playing an early wildcard works best in Game Week 3 or 4 versus Game Week 2. Game Week 2, we only had the data from one game week, which honestly doesn't feel like enough. So even though early wildcard Game Week 3 still feels early, it gives you a bit more of a chance to look at who the informed players are and how teams are setting up. So let's get into it. How does a wildcard in Game Week 2 look like for me? I've gone with Sanchez in goal again. There's no reason to move off him. He had a really good first game week. I see that form continuing. Then I've gone with Porro for the reasons I explained earlier. He's not as bad of a pick as we think against City. Then I've gone with Ballard, who I featured in my last video. I really like him at his price point. He's gone up a bit. He's gone up to 4.6 now, but he's still a great pick. I expect Sunderland to score a lot of goals from set pieces. And when that happens, Ballard is the #1 threat from that team. So apart from his clean sheet potential, I actually think his attacking contributions could be really significant this season. And then I've gone for Munoz from Crystal Palace. His numbers last season were absolutely sensational. He had the most attacking contributions from a fullback in FPL last season. I don't see that changing this season. Then, of course, Big Mo. This is a Haaland and Salah draft, so I've gone with Mo. I don't really need to spend too much time on why I've selected Salah. He's an incredible player. He speaks for himself. Next, Semenyo. So obviously he's had his difficult fixture against Liverpool and he made it look easy. Now he's got a great run of fixtures coming up. He's reasonably priced. And I really think that if you're going for a game week 2 wildcard, you can't go without Semenyo. Then we have Anderson at Nottingham Forest. So this is the kind of player, as I've said before on this channel, that will take over with consistent points week in, week out. In the first game week, he even added to his defensive contribution points with an assist. So obviously we're not going to be expecting that from him every single game week, but we can be assured that he'll be hitting those 3, 4, 5 pointers every single week as a consistent player that only costs 5.5 million. Next one's an easy choice. Reinders, again, really good value for his price point. He has gone up already 0.1 million. He will probably go up again before the next game week deadline, but he's absolutely worth having in the team. He's such a great enabler. Of course, we do have to keep reminding ourselves that Reinders could very well be a victim of Pep Roulette. However, in this draft, I put together a fairly deep team. So as you can see on my bench, I've got Kudus as first reserve. So if Reinders ends up being dropped or loses his minutes, we can bring Kudus in. And to be honest, depending on the game week, we may want to bench Anderson or Reinders or Kudus or even Strand Larsen, depending on who the team is playing. Then, of course, as this is a Salah and Haaland draft, I've gone with Haaland up top. He's captain for me in this team against Tottenham at home. I don't need to spend too much time on Haaland. We know why we want him in our teams. He's had a fantastic game week 1, and that looks set to continue. He always looks in blistering form in early season, so that's why we've got him in our teams, or would like to have him in our teams. Then we've gone with a bit of an optimistic punt in Woods. This is hoping, of course, that Kalimundo and the other new signings from Forest will not affect his minutes. But given the form he was in game week 2, and to be honest, most of last season, he's a pick that I can't really ignore. Completing the attack, we have Strand Larsen. Now, I know some of you will be asking, why do we have a player who blanked in game week 1? But considering he was playing City, his performance was actually really, really encouraging. As I said in my last video, he did get in front of goal a lot. He had a really good chance on goal, plus another couple of decent chances. I think once he starts playing teams more his level, I think we can absolutely see him as a really, really good asset. Then just quickly on the bench, we have a 4 million playing goalkeeper in Dubravka. Then we've gone with Kudus as first sub. I've only put him on the bench because he's playing City away. If this was a different game week, we might sub out a different player, of course. And then finally completing the bench, we have 2 4 million defenders in Estev and Goodmanson. Of course, both playing for newly promoted clubs, so we don't expect them to play that much in our teams. However, arguably, you could start Estev instead of Porro in this specific game week just because of the clean sheet odds. Well, that's it for today's video. I thought I'd keep it short and sweet. I just wanted to show you what an example Game Week 2 wildcard could look like. What picks would you have made differently? If you found this content useful, please do like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.